enumeration area demarcation.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our conversation centers on the role of statistics and statisticians in national development.
If indeed it's true that we plan to fail when we fail to plan, it's logical that what follows is our dream for national development will always remain elusive for as long as we fail to make adequate and effective plans for such development.
Well, there's no gainsaying the fact that planning is necessary for development, and that effective planning also is dependent on current and available data.
Quite true, Kingsley. And for us to realize some set goals envisioned by policies or set goals, strategic planning is needed to ensure the execution, monitoring, and also the implementation of this great process. In doing this, Kingsley, the role of statistics and, of course, that of the statistician are crucial as well as being relevant to the scheme of things.
Well, there's no doubt about that, Blessing. I mean, we're all aware that the absence of comprehensive and reliable statistical information and evidence-based policy has often been blamed for the slow pace of Nigeria's development. But then, if it is known that the role of statistics and statisticians can be a boon to the pace of development, why hasn't Nigeria effectively utilized the services of statisticians all along? Now, what are the challenges that have also militated against the growth and recognition of statistics, that is to say data now, as a tool for effective national development?
Well, all the questions, really, questions, and more questions. Those are the ways to go this morning. For the National Population Commission, it appears to have started its own work in earnest for the proposed census exercise scheduled to hold in the year 2016. That's just next year here. And if statistics is actually concerned with data collection and presentation, then it is also critical to the success of the enumeration area demarcation exercise being embarked on by the Commission. We'll get to hear more about that. Of course, that is this aspect of the National Population Commission's program much later in the program. Now, let's welcome you proper to the week's episode of the program Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Blessing Abu. It's great to start the week with you.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and I join Blessing in welcoming you to today's edition of the program, which, as usual, is reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, of course, we'll have our usual companion segments, newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. Now, before we go over to Rhoda Abo, the newsroom for the morning news, Blessing, of course, you know that you've indicated that next year will be the National Population Census, which is 2017. The last one we had was in 2006, and we have had a couple of states that have also undertaken their own enumeration exercises. But what is of concern to me is, I mean, we keep banding figures about the size of our population. A few years ago, we were said to be 100 and something. Now we hear 170. You know Nigerians would like to talk big, particularly about figures. Perhaps the census exercise will indicate.
Will help us at least put so many things in perspective.
Absolutely. Let's go over to the newsroom now, and here is Rhoda Abo with the morning news. Hi, Rhoda.
Good morning, Kingsley and Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria, and many thanks for joining us here on the News Bit. President Muhammadu Buhari will today begin a one-week official visit to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The president, who will be accompanied by a high-powered federal government delegation, will first arrive Riyadh for talks on Tuesday with King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud and senior officials of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. An official statement by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, indicates that the ongoing efforts by Nigeria and other members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, to achieve greater stability in the price of crude oil export will be top on the agenda for discussions between President Buhari and the Saudi monarch. Crude oil prices and market stability will also be on the front burner when President Buhari goes to Doha on Saturday for talks with the Emir of Qatar. President Buhari is also scheduled to meet with leading Saudi and Qatar businessmen in Riyadh and Doha and invite them to support his administration's effort to revamp the Nigerian economy by taking advantage of greater investment opportunities currently available in Nigeria's mining, agriculture, power supply, infrastructure, transportation, communication, and other sectors. President Buhari's other engagements in Saudi Arabia will include meeting with the heads of international financial organizations and multilateral associations. Before leaving for Doha, the president will visit Medina and Mecca to pray for greater peace and prosperity progress in Nigeria. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has advocated for what he describes as a new tribe of Nigerians to fight and dismantle the corruption system in the nation's private and public sectors. The Vice President stated this in Lagos when he appeared as a keynote speaker at the annual Dinner of the Apostles in the marketplace. In a release by the Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Publicity, Laolu Akande, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, stressed the need for a new tribe consisting of professionals, businessmen, politicians, religious leaders, and all others who believe that a new Nigeria is possible and who are prepared to make the sacrifices that are crucial to building a strong society. Now, former Senate President David Mark has won the Benue South senatorial re-round elections. Senator David Mark of the PDP scored 84,192 votes to defeat his rival Daniel Onje of APC, who scored 71,621 votes. Lawmakers, however, declared the re-run in Kogi State and Kogi Central Senatorial District inconclusive. Tijani Damisa of PDP wins Okene Ogori-Mangogo Federal Constituency seat unopposed. An association known as the People's Democratic Party Rescue Group has called on the new national chairman of the party, Senator Ali Modu Sharif, to step down. While addressing journalists in Abuja, chairman of the group, Ambassador Wilberforce Juta, said the call for him to vacate the position was part of a decision reached by concerned stakeholders of the party.
Cannot be any shortcut to the truth. Part of the derailment from the values of our party over the years is the elevation of imposition over internal democracy, as happened in the present appointment of the national chairman. Many party faithful do not see in Senator Sharif a model of impeccable integrity that the PDP badly needs to lead it at this critical moment.
And finally, the National Population Commission says it is partnering the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, to tackle the challenge of low-level birth registration, which stands at 30% in the country. The chairman, National Population Commission, Eze Duri-Hioma, made this known while briefing newsmen on the Commission's preparedness to commence field work on Phase 2 enumeration area demarcation across the country.
To involve both the private sector and the public sector. It's based on the incoming census, so that people will be sensitized to know the importance of this national census to continue in all the states. And in fact, in each state, one local government is being identified, and it's going to be conducted in each of these 37 local governments from 37 states, or 36 states, including the FCT.
And that's the news bit for now. It's back to Blessing and Kingsley for more on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Rhoda, for doing the news this morning. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break at this point, and we'll return. It will be time for our business package.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, Say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Hey guys, so I've recently become a mommy and it is the greatest feeling in the world, but also pretty daunting too. I'm sure you new moms can relate to my experience. Choosing the right diaper, there's so many brands out there. I used Pampers in the UK when I had Jamil and it was great. But some of my friends told me that Nigerian Pampers weren't as good, so we decided to try it for ourselves. Who slept so well? Who's a dry baby? Nigerian Pampers gets the thumbs up from me and the thumbs up from baby Jamil. He stays dry, he sleeps well, and you can see how much happy energy he has in the morning. I recommend Pampers to all of my friends. Don't take my word for it. Try it yourself and share your experiences.
Every day, more and more people are waking up to a more advanced toothpaste. A toothpaste that's already improving the oral health of millions of Nigerians. A toothpaste that's committed to making Nigeria's teeth healthier and stronger. That toothpaste is Oral-B Pro Health. Unlike regular toothpaste, its advanced fluoride technology gives you better protection against bacteria and gum problems that can lead to tooth loss. So come on, join us today. Oral-B Pro Health for healthier, stronger teeth in 1 week.
Why are you filming, Mommy?
To help people stop getting sick. People think it's the ever-changing weather during Harmattan that makes them sick. Actually, it's the germs. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs, including flu.
Dettol, endorsed by the
says the 3-year plan for national budgets will ensure that the nation's debt service to revenue continue to go down yearly, believes the overall effect is to revive the economy.
It is important that we revive this economy. We cannot afford to allow the economy to contract. We have to revive it. And the typical way you revive an economy is you do a major capital spend. You harvest your resources, you also borrow. But the borrowing, over time, you will see that because we have a 3-year plan, which we published, over time, by next year, the ratio of our debt service to our revenue will go down. And then by the following year, it will also go down. So this is a well-crafted, well-thought-out budget, and it is directed at reviving the economy.
All right, moving ahead, the Bureau de Change operators in Nigeria are targeting annual $21 billion average forex inflow from Nigerians in diaspora for their continued operations. The World Bank Migration and Remittances Factbook 2016 showed that Nigerians living abroad sent home $20.8 billion in 2015. The figure is by far the largest volume of remittances to any country in Africa and the 6th largest in the world. The President Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria, APCON, Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe, said the body has already made a proposition to the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to allow its over 3,000 members operate correspondence bank accounts. The account, he said, would allow the BDCs receive over $21 billion annual diaspora remittances and also allowed to operate like money transfer agents. He said the CBN is currently reviewing a proposal from the APCON and is confident of getting positive feedback because of the need to raise the dollar liquidity position in the market, which will also boost Naira stability. This practice, when approved, he said, would not only boost dollar liquidity in the market, but helps the country navigate through raging currency risks. Finally, on Business Packet this morning, the Nigerian Port Authority has confirmed the arrival of 5 ships loaded with petrol in Lagos, which is expected to end the resurfaced queues at filling stations. These were stated in the NPA's publication Shipping Position on February 19. According to publication, 33 other ships laden with petroleum products, food items, and other goods are expected to arrive at Papa and Tinkan Island Port in Lagos from February 19 to March 9 this year. NPA explained that the ships contained bulk wheat, bulk salt, bulk sugar, bulk coal, general cargoes, vehicle containers, rubber-tired gantry, cranes, gypsum, petrol, kerosene, and aviation turbine kerosene. It said 16 other ships are at the ports discharging general cargoes, soda ash, bulk rice, containers, steel products, diesel, and petrol. And that's the package on the Good Morning Nigeria business news this first day of the week. It's nice talking business with you. Good morning, Nigeria again.
Yes, many thanks, Sheon Oguloi there with the business package. Now, what are the stories making headlines this morning in the dailies? It's time for a newspaper review.
Bayo Atoyobe, the Good Morning Nigerian newspaper reviewer, is right here with us for today's edition. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kingsley. I hope you had a restful weekend.
Hey, it was quite restful, and you too.
Yes, thank you.
All
good
right.
Morning, Nigeria.
Okay, we have a potpourri of stories on the front pages of the papers this morning. Blessing, maybe a kickoff?
No, it's okay.
Yes, right.
All right, let's start off with the Daily Trust. The leading headline this morning says all tops agenda as Buhari visits Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That story, of course, starting here, but continues on the 5th page of the Daily Trust. And to election matters with our neighboring country, we have Nigerians queue to cast their votes in Sokoto during the country's presidential election yesterday. That's the photograph you have there on the front page of the Daily Trust. Okay, on Buhari's visit?
Well, yeah, just take other stories as well. I don't have the Buhari story on the front pages of some of the papers I have with me.
Okay, for Vanguard also, it also reports that of the trip of the president, Buhari in diplomatic shuttle to stabilize oil price. That's on the front page of the Vanguard. Buhari in diplomatic shuttle to stabilize oil price, visit Saudi Arabia and Qatar. That story also is on the 5th page of the Vanguard newspaper. Okay, Kingsley?
All right, let's take This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper above its name flag has two political stories, and just below that another political story. PDP leaders ask Sharif to resign. And with a rider, ex-party ministers meet tomorrow. PDP leaders ask Sharif to resign, and ex-party ministers meet tomorrow. Below that, David Mark returns to Senate, calls for reconciliation after victory. Details of that can be found on page 10. And then just below the name flag, showing card, that's the key card, politicians supported Boko Haram in their lust for power. And the lead story, of course, is right at the middle of the front page with a key card, Fayoshe, Buhari's forex policy killing states and local governments. Two writers says the Naira is already devalued and federal government should make it official. And oil prices top agenda as president departs for Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And also there on the front page, that's the last headline, is oil swap probe House committee summons Alice in Madweke. Details of that also can be found on page 10. Okay.
Yes, let's start with the president, what the people describe as shuttle diplomacy. The president is leaving for Saudi Arabia. He's expected to meet King Salman ibn Abdulaziz of Saud. And the topic of discussion is how to achieve stability. Ambassador Wilberforce Juta have called a meeting and said that they call on Senator Modu Ali Sharif to resign because majority of members do not accept him in good faith. However, while the Senator Modu Ali is supported by PDP governors, the former ministers appointed under the administration of the PDP since 1999 are also calling for a meeting to register their dislike of his emergence. Still on the political level, there were political reruns over the weekend. There was one in the one in Bayelsa and Imo have been postponed, but that of Taraba came out with the 3 seats going to the PDP. Senator David Mark also won in Benue Senatorial District, but he won 5 local governments, while Daniel Onje won in 4 local governments. Daniel Onje has already indicated that he's heading for the election tribunal. However, Senator David Mark, who won, appealed that those who fought against him should unite with him so that they can build the Idoma nation. This is a constant refrain that keep on coming, the Idoma nation. The election there took a serious ethnic undertone. And if you look at the landscape in Benue, you see that the Tiv are the dominant ethnic groups. And the Idomas are complaining that they've been so domineering that they hardly can have a breathing space. Ironically, in this senatorial election, the Agatu and also the other smaller groups are being suppressed by this idea of Idoma nation, and which I think is not very healthy. You know, we have the same picture in Benue. The Igede people are complaining in Benue. So that becomes a very serious problem for us in our political, because a senatorial district is a national outfit. And when it takes an ethical coloration, it becomes a matter of concern, because it engenders this constant agitation and restlessness.
Yeah, particularly for state creation. Bayo, let's take other headlines. We'll come to them. There are stories that touch the pocket of people directly. Let's go to The Guardian. Let's say The Guardian. There's a story at, on the front page, but it's in greater detail on page 3. It says CPC, that's the Consumer Protection Council, rolls out orders to protect rights of DSTV subscribers. You have that story also in greater detail in this day newspaper. But other headlines on the front page of The Guardian, also on page 3 in greater detail, heavy Lagos rains, not sign of rainy season, say meteorologists. Heavy Lagos rains, not sign of rainy season, say meteorologists. And then on page 4, you have the headline, you have the story. Corruption has no tribal, religious, or professional boundaries, says Oshibanjo. And focus on technology as Social Media Week opens in Lagos. Now, there's also another story there from Southwest, details on page 9. Ajimobi to install Adetunji for the first Olubadan on March the 4th. And then Bayelsa community raises the alarm over gas leakage along Ajib pipeline. We've already dealt with the political story. That's the second lead story on the front page of The Guardian. But the lead story of The Guardian has to do with oil and gas. It says government diverts 813.6 billion naira to fund joint ventures. Government diverts 813.6 billion naira to fund joint ventures. 3 riders says retains zero oil and gas revenue from April to December. Nigeria shops for foreign JVs investors, that's joint venture investors, and only 5 billion naira released for projects in second quarter. You can find the details on the front page, and it jumps to page 6.
Okay. All right. There are stories too here that I think it's of great concern to all residents in Lekki and most parts of Lagos. The front page of The Guardian, Vanguard rather, I beg your pardon, has but the details, full details are on pages 36 and 37. Strange killer disease in Lekki, Lagos. How I lost 3 children in 3 weeks. I think on the inside page, of course, the photograph of the baby and that of the mother, just still lost in deep thoughts. Vanguard, strange killer disease in Lekki, Lagos. But to business stories now, banks struggle with excess 1.5 trillion naira deposit, with rider reluctant to invest in real sector funding. That's how the Vanguard reports a business story. And still in business, Daily Trust has another headline, banks cut foreign spending limit again. Banks cut foreign spending limit again. All the details you find on page 20 of the Daily Trust. Okay, Bayo.
Yes, let's start with the human interest story. Babies are in another challenge about illness in Lagos. And the suspicion is that maybe it's measles, but it's not been confirmed. But the health authorities in Lagos are already taken up, and they are trying to investigate to place a finger on what actually is the cause of that ailment. But one of the topics that came over the weekend was the issue of corruption as addressed by the Vice President. He was speaking at a dinner which had a theme about corruption, the challenge for change. And he said categorically that for this administration, finding a right person for any task has become a challenge. He says that the list of corrupt actors, corruption cut across tribal, ethnic, and religious lines. And he says that such corrupt persons and their collaborators are enshrined in the legislature, the judiciary, and even in the press. He says that those who belong always protect one another's interests and are ready to go down together. And he provides a solution. He says Nigeria needs a new tribe of men and women who are prepared to make sacrifices. Those who make self-constraint to building a strong society. And we require to fight corruption side by side. He says, he insists that on justice, even when our friends are at the receiving end, we should have the courage to insist on justice. The other story that is very worrying is that this morning, the UTME JAM examination is likely to start. And as Friday, candidates who couldn't register before the portal closed were protesting strongly in Benin and also in Lagos. But the head of media for JAM, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, has said that the candidates have 7 months to register and that the close was in January, but because of pressure and appeals, they extended it to February, and they cannot leave the portals open indefinitely.
Bayo, that story you're talking about is actually on page 49 of this day newspaper. Page 49 of this day newspaper, you can see that headline that says, amid protests, JAMB insists on closure of sale of forms. That's the headline that is there on page 49 of this day newspaper.
Okay, so that's such a story because we've taken on this aspect in one of our conversation. Nobody can reverse new electricity tariff. This is coming from ex-NERC bus. Nobody can reverse. That's on the front page of the Vanguard, just beside the photograph there you have. Nobody can reverse new electricity tariff. This is coming from
I would not want to comment on that because it's so judici.
That's right.
But for now,
Bayo, let's take a story, since we run away from a commentary on that story. There's a story on page 8 of this day newspaper. Page 8, it says, Cambridge University's bronze cockerel must go back to Nigeria, students say. Now, that's the students at Cambridge University are urging that the cockerel, which was one of the items looted from the Benin Empire, must be returned to Benin City. It's a cockerel that is standing in the hall there at Cambridge University.
Well, you recall that the mask that was used for the emblem of Festac was also taken away, and it was resting in British Museum for a long time.
It is still there. It's still there. If you go to the museum in London, it's right there. That's one of the basement. It's a high-wired security environment. So once I was in there,
is an antiquity that should belong to Nigeria.
It not should belong. It belongs to Nigeria.
Well,
that's right. Okay, Bayo, this is another story again from page 8 of this day. It says 450 children died of malnutrition in 28 IDP camps in Borno. And then suspects arrested for sneaking into camps, and military yet to confirm arrest of Shekau impersonator.
Yes, I think the arrest there was some suspected insurgents who were trying to sneak into IDP camp. But there is a story coming from Kogi, 2 critical interesting stories. There was a rerun in Kogi, and again, this rerun became inconclusive again, so they will now have to wait for another date. But 14 members of Kogi State House of Assembly have served impeachment notice on the Deputy Governor, Simeon Achuba. You recall that he was sworn in barely a week ago. And the members, led by Momo Jimolawa, says that at the plenary which they held at Abuja, said they allege that the deputy governor is causing chaos among legislative and the executive 1 week after he was confirmed. Secondly, they are investigating him as forcefully trying to change the leadership of the legislature. They said deputy governor is performing legislative function by purportedly swearing in the speaker in his office. They recall that 5 members of the 24-member House of Assembly allegedly had impeached the Speaker Lawal.
All right. Well, as Blessing says, cooking in the news again. Let's see how that pans out. Bayo Tobi, would like to thank you for being with us on a review segment of Good Morning Nigeria today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we proceed with our principal items for discussion, statistics and statisticians, as well as the lead up to next year's proposed national population census exercise.
We have always lived together as brothers and sisters. Though we speak different languages and celebrate different cultures, we were still one Nigeria. There was no bombing, there was no kidnapping, and our children were not cultists. Now, we suspect one another as there are spreads of cultism, bombing, and kidnapping. How long shall this go on? Terrorism is alien. Kidnapping is criminal. Cultism is barbaric. Nigeria is a blessed country. Support the Nigeria Police and the fight against terrorism, kidnapping, and cultism. Always inform the police of any incident around you. Say something when you suspect something.
Remember, we all have a stake in building a crime-free Nigeria of our dream.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
Hello Nigerians, I am Chief Eric Mafia, president of Risco Foods Limited. As a particle manufacturer, Risco Foods.
Alive Pulpy Orange.
Where is the pulp? The pulp. Where is the pulp? Where is the pulp?
Taste the goodness of real orange pulp in every gulp.
Where is the pulp?
The new 5 Alive Pulpy Orange, now in your neighborhood.
If you just joined us, the program is Good Morning Nigeria, showing on Africa's largest television network, the NTA. And of course, you're right in time for our first part of a conversation this morning, taking a look at the preparation with the National Population Commission's proposed census enumeration exercise. Of course, come next year, 2017, we're set to have the census take place. But how ready? Those are things we intend to find out with our guest this morning. Joining us on set is my way in the studio, the Chairman, National Population Commission, Mr. A.Z. Duru Iyama, SAN. It's our pleasure to welcome you to the program this morning.
Thank you, Blessing. Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. We also have with us the Enumeration Area Demarcation Manager. Enumeration Area Demarcation Manager of the National Population Commission. He is Prince Joseph Ogunshino. Prince Ogunshino, it's our pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, all right. Blessing, let's kick off.
With the chairman. Of course, 2017 is very crucial for Population Commission. And it's the year that we're set to see what numbers, like Kingsley and I were talking earlier, and we said sometimes we just have some kind of estimates given here and there. Nobody seems to know what actual data we're using to say this is what is happening. But now we're set to do the real thing and have the actual figure. How set are we to have this coming census free of all the issues that we have always had in the time past?
Well, let me put it this way. The countdown has started. And as part of that countdown, that is very crucial, very, very important to the entire process, is this demarcation of the Nigerian landmass, into small units that can be handled by enumerators. So that is what we are presently engaged in doing. And, let me be graphic. Nigerians are very familiar with INEC and so what we are doing now, the nearest to it, the nearest thing to it, from what we see, from INEC, is the polling unit. Because the polling unit is the registration unit in an electoral process. So the demarcation unit is the smallest unit in a census process. So that is what we are presently engaged in doing. And so far, we have done it the first time somewhere in Ondo State, and then later, sometime last year, later part of last year, we took out about 7 local governments across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, plus FCT. That was concluded before Christmas. So we're now about to embark upon the next phase, which is carrying out the same exercise in 29 local governments of 29 states. The earlier exercises didn't involve these states. So we are now going to visit those states that were left out in the earlier exercises.
Well, you've summoned the analogy, to INEC demarcation exercises, constituency demarcation, polling unit. We'll come to that so that we'll break it down for our viewers to really understand what their role is. in the enumeration process, what the expectation should be. But I would like you to speak to a point that some observers have indicated as perhaps worrisome. The received wisdom is that national population census exercises take place every decade, every 10 years. But it would appear that we have never, since independence, 1962, the next census exercise was 1973, another one came in 1991, the last one we had was in 2006. The expectation was that the census exercise we are now proposing for 2017 ought to have taken place this year. What happened?
Okay, now that you raise this issue, I don't know what may have informed the postponements the exercise suffered in the past. I don't know. I wasn't there. But talking about the one that ought to have held this year, that we shifted to next year, let me just simply blame it on poor preparation. Because, like you said, received wisdom, conventional wisdom, has it that it takes between 4 years and 17 months to plan for a successful census. And when sometime last year we discovered that taking this, particular consideration into account, that we were ill-prepared. Of course, we had to be frank to ourselves and told, Mr. President that as at September last year, we could not conceivably talk about holding a census in 2016 because the preparations were not there.
What happened? You were not in charge of your preparations? Or the commission wasn't in charge of its preparations?
No, well, preparations, that's an euphemism for saying that the funding over the years was anything but satisfactory. So, and without funding, for example, this demarcation exercise, this is a massive, massive exercise, capital intensive, very, very capital intensive. In fact, why do we have to settle for 29 local governments out of 774? Right. Just because of funding. So as our funding improves, we shall expand our activities.
Okay, well, let's take a look at now the Chairman earlier used the format of what INEC will do to actually give us an understanding. What exactly would MPC be looking at in this particular enumeration area demarcation? What and what should form the backup that you want the public to actually give you?
Okay, thank you. We are doing right now enumeration area demarcation. Enumeration area demarcation simply is, dividing the whole country into units of operation. Because if you want to count people, you can't just say, even if you are using 1 million people to count Nigeria, you can't just say, you go to Ondo, go to Ibadan, go to... So what we are doing right now is to divide the whole country into units of operation where enumerators can visit, and that will be enough as an assignment during census. That is the exercise we are doing right now. We have, as the chairman said, we have, because when you are doing a thing like this, it's a project. We have the methodology, we have the proposed, the staff we will use during the field work. We have the materials that, will be required. So as a result, we first did a pilot test in Ondo State in 2014 December in one local government because of the fund that was available at that time. Last year, we, moved to 7 local governments, one from each geopolitical zone, and Abuja. We picked Kwali. Today, from today till the next 21 days, we are starting, the EAD in 29 local governments of the Federation. The essence of this job is to, have the units of operation. And, and the final thing that we are thinking of getting is the geographic frame that anybody can key into. The INEC can use it, the NGOs can use it for even, it's not just only for census, but for other surveys that any agency may want to carry out. Because if you want to do a sample survey, you need the EA frame. And that is part of the mandate of National Population Commission, to provide geographic frame that anybody can use for surveys and census. And
when you say, Prince Commissioner, when you say a geographic frame, I'm sure some of our viewers may wonder exactly what do you mean.
Okay.
If we have 774 local governments, 6 of which are area councils on the FCT, and if ultimately, anyway, for you to have a successful exercise, you will have to delineate the enumeration areas. Why are we just doing only 29 now, as it were?
Yeah, the chairman has said it earlier on. For now, is because of the fund. One, then again, we are trying our methodology because we don't just want to jump into the field and say, do it this way. Because when you try it, and when you try, we started with a local government, we moved to 7 local government, and now 29. By the time we finish this, we must have covered all at least one local government in every state. Then we'll know the peculiar problems, so that we can plan for the main exercise. Because the remaining 731 AGs is our next target after analyzing the results of what we are getting from these 37.
What does enumeration demarcation involve? Yes. What does it involve? What does the demarcation involve?
It involves you having the materials, the people that will go to the field, and for this exercise, because of the technology we're adopting is purely a GIS base. That is, we are using very high resolution satellite imagery, because in the past what we are doing, it was more or less in the analog way. But now we have the technology that can assist us to get,
is making to at least just go within the purview of maybe 29 local governments now. Just like Kingsley pointed out, almost for 774 local governments. Between now and the next year's census, what other areas of challenges that will you be expecting to look into quickly that will help your job properly?
No, well, what the manager has explained is part of why we are taking them gradually. Part of the reason is to draw experiences, because we are putting to use new technologies. And they're not things they just, introduce without some kind of base preparation. So we are trying to understand what problems we can encounter if we go on a large scale. So I am sure that the present exercise will come out of it richer in all respects.
Okay, but more specifically, but let me take this question again to Prince Ogushina, who is the manager in charge of the demarcation program. What role do you expect of ordinary citizens in this exercise?
Okay, as I've said earlier on, our people will be visiting every part of the local government where we'll be doing the exercise. First of all, we expect the ordinary citizen to give correct information, because they will be visiting all the buildings and all the households to seek for information, like how many households do we have, who is the head of the household, and the most important thing is that we need correct answers to these questions. And again, in some rural areas, because sometimes it may be difficult for demarcators to move between the local government headquarters and the rural area. As a result, we would want the community, most especially the heads of the communities, to please give our people some accommodation, because when it comes to the issue of a city, they can have hotels. But when you are working in a rural area, where maybe the only building you have there is about 2 or 3, then definitely you need to accommodate them, because there won't be any hotel. So we want people to assist in that area. And now in Nigeria, we have some security challenges. The community can be of help in terms of, giving a right information. Please, this place may be a little bit dangerous. Don't go there. They are not police, they are not the soldiers, but that you know your terrain, you are living in a particular place, definitely you will know where.
Which local governments are involved? 29 of them, and have you tried to sensitize the local governments ahead of this pilot project?
Yeah, we have 29 local governments. If you want me to mention them, I can mention them.
Yeah, mention the states. You can mention so that they would know where exactly.
Yeah, I will start from.
He's an expert in that area.
I will start from Northwest. That is from Kebbi. We are doing Gwandu, in Kebbi, Gwandi local government. We are not doing it in Sokoto, we have done it in phase 1. In Katsina, we are doing it in Funtua. In Kano, we are doing it in Traoni. In Jigawa, we are doing it in Gumer. In Yobe, we are doing it in Potiskum. In Borno, we are doing it in Kwayakuza. In Adamawa, we are doing it in Yola North. In Bauchi, we are doing it in Misau. In Plateau, we are doing it Jos North, Jos South. In Benue, we are doing it Makodi. In Nasarawa, we are doing it Kefi. In Taraba, we are doing it Jalingo. In I'm taking North Central.
All right, that's fine. I'm sure the others, once you put out the information, yes.
Area of interest here, especially, you just mentioned a part in Borno now. What about the consideration of those who are still left in the IDP camps, and what provision are you making for such area coverage?
Yeah, you see, we are using maps. You know, as I've said earlier on, we are covering every part of the country. For example, now in Kwaya Kuza, the AJ we are covering this time around, whatever IDPs that we have there will be mapped. Because IDP, you know, any place that has a location in the House of it with the aid of maps and the satellite imagery, you can cover them. So we are going to map every part of the local government. If we have IDPs there, we'll map them.
All right. Well, let's come back again to the chairman of the Population Commission. Census exercises have never been wholly accepted in terms of the outcome. We have controversies all around. The last one in 2006, Lagos rejected its figures, and a few other states also rejected their figures. We had controversy in 1991. Some persons said 1991 figures were just mathematical projections from what occurred in 1973. What is it that the Commission is seeking to do differently this time to ensure that the figures are credible?
Well, I think the direct answer to the question is the fact that we have noticed some of these controversies, and we're doing everything humanly possible to walk away from them. Particularly, the allegation of inflation of figures is something we want to make sure nobody ever raises, because we are going to employ, or deploy rather, an electronic capture device method that is biometric. We'll capture facial and fingerprints. So if these things are captured, and that's for everybody, unlike in the past. In fact, the nearest thing to what we are doing now was in 2006, but that one was partial. That one covered only 40%. So the rest 60% were left to their devices. So this time around, if we, as we propose, to do 800% electronic capture device method, the chances of duplication, manipulation will be reduced. May not be to the barest minimum, but will be considerably reduced. So if we reduce that one area of controversy, we would have achieved quite a lot. So that,
you know, we have some tweets in already, as you very well know. Our viewers respond to remarks by guests on the particular topic that we're discussing. And the Twitter handle is right there on the screen at NTA GMA. Wiseman is writing, the MPC, that's the Population Commission, should improve by relying on data by FRSC, banks, INEC, national ID card, etc., and reduce over-counting, manual counting. In other words, what this raises, obviously, is what is the relationship, with other data gathering agencies all over the place?
You see, this issue has continued to come up. Data capturing, well, one can say it's data capturing, because if your data is captured in the bank or NCC, you'll see your data for all purposes. So the one we are going to capture, so maybe on the face of it duplicates, the efforts. But census goes beyond blessing so and all that. If you note what we want to do, it involves housing census too. Exactly. Both must go hand in hand. So there's no way we can do housing census and you don't do physical or human census. So the difference between what we want to do and what has already been done is, the difference is quite a lot. Because, okay, in capturing your data, maybe certain information, because we have developed a questionnaire for this census, and it contains a whole lot of questions for respondents to answer. These questions are detailed. If you are physically handicapped, there's provision for it in the form. If whatever thing that is peculiar to you, that is relevant to Nigeria and this planning.
Okay,
what is the relationship?
Take time to react to that too. Ibrahim Chide says, conscious of the importance of or census, can you please name 5 institutions that are compelled to use the census figures in Nigeria?
Okay, that is not, we have had to deal with this question before. And of course, sitting down here, I cannot honestly tell you all this and that. But we make this data available. We make them available. They are there in the marketplace. They are there in, end users. So if they use them or they don't use them, I mean, there's no way the Population Commission can compel them to do that.
Okay, I just would like to wrap this up by saying, what is your reaction to enumeration exercises also undertaken by some state governments? Enumeration, for instance, of property, of houses, and then for purposes of issuing ID cards. What's your reaction to this?
Well, our reaction is to question the legality of such exercises, because under the Constitution, the enumeration of people and houses is exclusively vested on the Population Commission. So I don't see how a state government or local government, they can draw from data supplied by the Population Commission, but to embark on their own, well.
So you have the opinion, no legality given?
Yes, there is no, it's illegal from our point of view.
All right. Eze Duru Hilma saying, Chairman, National Population Commission, would like to thank you for joining our program this morning.
Blessing.
I also want to appreciate Prince Joseph Ogushino, who is the Enumeration Area Demarcation Manager, still with the National Population Commission. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Okay, to our second part of the conversation, statistics and, of course, statisticians are vital to national development. Governments need this information to build a viable and strong economic system and for designing a formidable evidence-based policy. Here's Timothy Yusuf with more.
Experts say no meaningful national development can take place without empowering the national statistical system. For instance, in national development, the aspirations of a policy is to attain national goals and to achieve a fair measure of success in the goals. Hence, there is the need to map out strategic plans, set up machinery for execution of the plans, and monitor the implementation process. Reliable statistics describe the reality of people's everyday lives, provide the evidence required to develop and monitor effective development policies, thereby highlighting where resources are most needed, either due to increased population, and provides the means to track progress and assess the impact of different policies of government. Good statistics are also observed to be capable of improving the transparency and accountability of policymaking, both of which are essential for good governance by enabling the people to judge the successes of government policies and as well to hold government accountable for such policies. On the other hand, while good statistical information are essential for the effective management of basic services, many developing countries, Nigeria inclusive, are observed to still lack the capacity to produce, analyze and use the range and quality of statistics required to support effective development progress. Consequently, policy-making thus suffers, while government may in the process not be held accountable for its decisions. On the whole, resources in developing countries are observed to be very limited. Hence, statistics are necessary to help ensure the available resources put into development are used as effectively as possible.
NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
All right, now joining us for the second leg of our conversation this morning on statistics and national development, we have with us the Statistician General of the Federation, Dr. Yemi Kale. Dr. Kale, it's our pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right.
Also here with us in the studio is Dr. Mohammed Tumala. He's the President, Statisticians Association of Nigeria. Welcome you to the program today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's begin with the Assistant General of the Federation and perhaps a point of controversy to actually kick off. Nigerian scholars, Nigerian intelligentsia, whenever they want to summon evidence to buttress their arguments, they often rely on data provided by external bodies. Oftentimes you hear, oh, WHO has said this, UNICEF has said this, World Bank has said this, and yet when you have data coming out from the National Bureau of Statistics, for instance, the data would appear not to be utilized, as it were, by Nigerian intelligentsia. What is going on?
Well, let me just answer that question by saying that actually whether they quote the WHO, the World Bank, and so on, or not, the data NBS produces is being utilized, because a lot of people don't realize that this agency's data they are quoting is actually produced by the National Bureau of Statistics. These agencies don't come to Nigeria to collect data. They use the National Statistical Office. So all the data you are quoting is actually National Bureau of Statistics data. I think it is, it is a situation where people feel more comfortable, or they believe that they trust more data, that when they hear a particular agency reporting the data, they seem to be more comfortable. I think most of them don't even realize that the data they are quoting, that they are saying is more credible, is coming from exactly the same source, which is the National Bureau of Statistics. These agencies do not come to Nigeria, whether the World Bank and so on, they don't come to Nigeria. They come to Nigeria and they use the statistical system that exists in Nigeria. We are just more, we are just a people that over the years we have grown to distrust anything that is government. As long as I've made this joke before that if I leave this position and set up a private consultancy and also release MBS data, everybody will say everything I'm saying is suddenly correct. But while I'm on this seat, then it's something to be, there are question marks that are raised, because we generally become extremely suspicious of anything government. There must be something going on. But the truth of the matter is 99% of the data that is produced and published or quoted rather by many of these agencies is either produced by National Statistical Office, or it's merely estimates created by these agencies when they don't have the ability to call data. So it's either estimates, in which case it's something that they make up in their offices in Washington, or it's data that is produced using the National Statistical Office or National Statistical System, either the National Bureau of Statistics, Population Commission, and the other members of the statistical system.
Sorry, let's get to Dr. Tumala. Dr. Tumala, is it a question of integrity challenge that we have with our data? I mean, as the Dr. Kale said, okay, the Nigerians, particularly the intelligentsia, they got more used to being suspicious of figures rolled out by government. So what is the integrity challenge, if any?
Well, I think it's an issue of where we are coming from, the history. When we had Federal Office of Statistics, we actually had like absolutely no data, and we had to rely on development partners and so on. So that history is still there, but I think Nigerians should know that we now have a statistical system that produces data in line with internationally required standards. And I want to agree with him that international bodies do not come to Nigeria to produce data. They obtain data from Nigerian agencies, but they may focus sometimes based on their own understanding and so on. So there is no data on Nigeria that is being produced by the World Bank or the IMF. They are all produced within Nigeria and, made available to those agencies.
Okay, Dr. Tumala, it was said that one of your quotes, or you were quoted somewhere as saying that you cannot measure or monitor national development without actually having the right statistics. you might need to tell us more of the place of statistics and national development, even at this crucial point of our national life. Definitely, we must move forward from mere estimates or some kind of estimation being given to actually foster development. What do we have on our hands, really?
That's true. First, let's understand statistics as a numerical version of history. There is no any other way you can measure where a country is without using numbers. You must have heard of Human Development Index and all sort of indices. These are a combination of numbers measured in respect to what is happening in the society. We cannot properly develop a nation without the use of statistics. By the way, the use of statistics to develop any country will depend on three key things: the presence of statistics itself, the political will to use information to plan, because developing countries like Nigeria, take so much of politics into decisions rather than facts. The other thing you need to do is also the capability of those who are making decisions. The numbers could be there if the analytical skills are not there within the users, the end users of statistics, to see the future and how to actually relate the numbers to the future of a country. It's like not using statistics itself. So these are the factors that drive the use of statistics for national development. By the way, today, everywhere in the world, even businesses are now run on statistics. You have to understand the behavior of your customers and so on. It goes just beyond, manufacturing goods and so on. So they are competing on what they call analytics now. So that's even businesses. So governments need to realize that it is better to look at facts and figures than just take political considerations all the time in taking decisions for the country.
Okay, well, Dr. Kala, you've already, by implication, mentioned development partners as one of the clients for data, gathered and analyzed, perhaps by the National Bureau of Statistics. Who else are your other clients in Nigeria?
I think our clients cut across, I think like the president of the NSA said, our clients cut across everybody. In every area of our life, in every subject, there's always data that is being used. You cannot take any informed decision without knowing what the problem is. You have to first know what the current status is. So our clients are virtually everybody: the private sector, the public sector, the international community, the researchers, the students, even the average Nigerian that wants to know whether his elected officials are working or not. I remember in the past, you have situations where you just see a list of ministers, for example, and then a particular newspaper will just read them good, bad, poor. And I used to ask myself, what's that based on? Whether you like him, the number of interviews he granted. But now you can use data to judge that minister. You can say for this particular sector, this was where the numbers were when he came in. This is where the numbers are a year or two after. And that's an objective way of judging your elected officials. But in the past, it was just a case of who could spin the story better. But now you can have, so in our clients, basically, we call them data users. It cuts across everybody. I'll give you an example of a private sector company that took our much talked about inflation numbers, and the numbers suggested that prices were rising as a result of supply pressure in a particular area. So they came to us and said, can you tell us, because we have lots of goods in our stock, and we are hearing that there's pressure in prices in this particular area. How is that possible since we have plenty of goods in our warehouse? So we now showed them the area where the prices were shooting up as a result of lack of supply. So they could go to their warehouse, take out those goods and pump it in that area. That's how private sector uses data. So they pump the goods in that area because they had plenty of goods they were looking to sell. Now, like I said, it's everybody. If you want to start a business, there's a story I always give, I heard many years ago, of a young man that wanted to set up an internet cafe. He needs demographic data. He wants to know where to locate his business. And it's better to locate it in areas where people don't have internet access. Now, if you go to the richer parts of a country and set up your company without knowing the income levels in that particular area, you set your business up in a place you have no client because everybody in that area has computers, they have internet, your business will collapse. You're better off knowing that, okay, in this area, these are the average income, even in deciding how much you charge. This is what people earn in this area. This is the percentage of people in this area that have computers, that have access to internet. Then you set your business there, it might thrive. You set it in the wrong place, without using data, your business will collapse. So a business entrepreneur, a government that wants to introduce policy from the beginning. I always use this example because it's very topical. You cannot solve an unemployment by calling out random figures. You don't say, I will create 2 million jobs in a year or in 2 years, because you don't know whether you need up to 2 million or even more. You start off by finding out how many people actually need these jobs, how many people are going to come into the labor market by next year, how many jobs you need to provide ready for them, in what sectors, what are their qualifications, what are their skills, what are the sector generating jobs, how many jobs can each sector create, and so on. It's when you get all that information, all statistics, then you can design a policy. You don't want as a governor to create 100,000 medical doctor jobs when there's nobody in your state that are graduates in medicine. You won't solve your unemployment problem. You have to know what the unemployment problem in your particular state is, and that's where the numbers come in. So whether even a development partner, you are coming in, you are trying to intervene in poverty, in health, in education, you have to know what the numbers are saying. Otherwise, how do you know you are intervening correctly?
Well, let's, Dr. Kale, fine points that you've made. Private sector clients, public sector clients. We'll come to the access fee to your data, assuming that you do charge. But let's focus first now on the public sector. You just mentioned an example. It's not sufficient, to mouth that you're going to create 10,000 jobs, X, Y, Z. Do you get patronized by all three tiers of government, federal, state, and local government, with regard, to their planning purposes?
Well, there's an increasing use of data by the federal government. I can say that categorically because I know when I took over about 4 years ago, nobody paid any attention whatsoever to what the MBS was doing. Over time, I get invited to virtually almost every committee of government that has been set up because they realize that they need the data. MBS is part of the attendance at the Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN, for example, because CBN, of course, one of the better users and producers of data, understand how important that is. I think for the first time, the National Bureau of Statistics was invited to be a member of the Federal Executive Council, the Economic Management team of government, because they knew that everything they are discussing there, they have to first understand. So there's an increased use of data by the federal government. In the states, it varies. The capacities of states in terms of statistical development they're not on the same level. There are some states like Lagos State that are more developed in the production and use of data, and there are other states that are not as developed because they don't use data or take it as serious. It's a gradual process, and part of the responsibility of the MBS is to ensure that there's advocacy to these states and local governments to use more data in forming their policies. I use another example with one former state governor that we released data on poverty, and his state was not doing very well, so he was upset, of course. And he was very upset. Of course, the numbers are always right when they look good, and they're always wrong when they don't. That's what we have to deal with in the statistical system. So he invites me, and he was one of the better performing governors. He invites me to his state. He takes me everywhere, shows me roads that he has built to open up. If you understand the theory, open up the poor to markets by creating roads and so on. And after a very 2-hour visit, he said, can you see how your numbers are wrong with all these roads that are built? And you're saying, I said, well, Your Excellency, they are nice looking roads. The problem, I now brought out a poverty mapping of his state to show where the poor are concentrated in his state. And I showed him that the roads that he opened were where a very small proportion of his poor are. Whereas the areas where his poor were concentrated, he didn't open roads at all. So I said, you see, if you had looked at the data, you would have known that this is where you should have opened the roads rather than, so you have created 10 roads that didn't have any impact on your poor. You could have opened just 2 and you'd have reduced poverty significantly. So I explained to him this how you should have used the data. It's not about spending money, opening roads, building construction. You have to know what the problem is. before you can resolve.
Legacy projects, you know.
Well,
stuff like that. Yes, bless
All
it.
right, let's take a look at when, of course, statistics or data actually relegated, really, how it affects other the different tiers of government, as we've pointed out. In a nation that is set to do so much, even with the present administration, let's take a look at place of data, of course, as you plan. Well, I know recently there was a meeting of the commissioners of planning. Even I think we had to meet Dr. Khaled there. Let's take a look at what goes on in planning, really, and statistics for states and ultimately the federation to actually achieve that which the administration has set out as policies for the people. Dr. Tamale.
Yes. First of all, the country had a strategy for the development of statistics that takes care and permits to all the levels of governance. And that strategy was only renewed last year. That was going to run between this year and 2020. So we have a national strategy for the development of statistics. The focus now is to put in place the institutional arrangement for the production of statistics at the state and local government levels, having achieved that at the national level. This goes with sensitizing the three arms of government to utilize statistics, to use statistics in planning, you know, approaching the houses of assembly, making periodic reports that could be used by executive councils and so on. I want to agree that the demand for statistics at the state level is rather very low, and it is possibly completely absent at the local government level. But we think and hope that by the way we have those institutions in ground, the statistics is being produced, there's going to be an increased use of statistics at the state and local government level, and also providing funds. The institutions are made in such a way that the State Bureau of Statistics is supposed to be a stand-alone bureau with budget line and so on to ensure the funding of statistical activities.
I'm just wondering, Dr. Tumala, do you have enough statisticians in Nigeria? Which also leads to the question of the training for graduates in statistics. I know that in the past, statistics used to be a standalone course. But these days, you find that statistics goes with economics, you know, it's subsumed under economics or elsewhere. Do you have enough manpower?
Yes and no. Yes, in some states, we do have enough statisticians. We do have statisticians. Let me share my experience. I did an assessment in a particular state. And I discovered that there are so many statisticians within the employment of the state, but given different assignment, not the production of statistics. So we have that situation in so many states. In some states, we have almost like absent statisticians because that environment did not motivate them to read statistics. But today, you walk into most universities in the country, statistics is one of those courses that is being preferred by many students. So you get up to 200 to 400 students in a particular group. So we have statisticians. I think what is missing is the political will and the understanding that we need to purposefully employ statisticians. And the reason why statistics is being read along with other subjects is statistics is like a language. It's like English. Statistics is being used in different places. To understand and produce economic data, you need to know a little bit about economics, and you apply your knowledge or the techniques of statistics. To use medical data, you need to understand a little bit of the medical terminologies and so, agric and so. That's why today statistics is diverse. You know, we have econometrics is statistics, biometrics is statistics in biological sciences, experimental design mostly in agriculture and so on. So we have social statistics and so on. So that is the broad base of statistics, because it permeates every aspect of the society. So we encourage students at the beginning, where is your passion? Where do you want to apply statistics? And try to take elective courses to enable you understand the basic concepts in those areas.
Okay. You talked about the absence of political will, and there's probably 2 or 3 times you've mentioned that in the course of this conversation. Could you elaborate on this?
Well, political will in the sense, first, you need a leader that will say, well, this is how I will go, and I will use these tools. And you begin to demand. As far as you are not demanding for information when you are doing your planning, you do not have the political will to use information to plan. It is rather sad that really most of our decision processes are heavier on the political side. That's why politicians, when they talk today about policies and so on, and I say, somebody will talk for hours, I will not pick one thing.
Let me add to that, to what he said, that it's one thing, the reason why I think that you get more general statements, like he mentioned, rather than specific targets. It's not that we don't know the data exists, but when you give specific targets, something you can be held on. You said, I want to increase the income from 5 to 10. Everybody heard 5 to 10. But if you say, I want to increase income, which is usually what you hear, then you can, if you don't, you can always, you have a bit of wiggle room. Also, in terms of, I think to add to what you said about political commitment, I think it's also, if you want something done, is to demand it as well, but you have to also devote resources to it. So I think political commitment also in the sense that you support the data system. You put the resources there to build a statistical system because you need these things to come in. What we normally hear, and I've been hearing it for over the years, is when I'm having these discussions for support from ministers and so on, of finance and so on, they usually say the same thing. Even they all say the same thing. They've all said the same thing. Nigerians want to spend money on things they can feel, they can touch, they can see. They want to spend money on roads. They want to spend money on chairs and so on. But statistics or things like research is something you cannot see and you cannot explain to Nigeria, as important as it is. So it's not as, I've had this conversation where they all recognize the importance of data. They want to support it, but they have this pressure where they feel most Nigerians want to see, they want things that to spend money on things that you can actually see, as opposed to things like research, like data that you cannot see. And I think I also want to agree that it's extremely important that statistics should be linked to a particular, I am a fan of statistics with something. It is an economist that will be able to spot easier if some economic number is not making any sense, because an economist, a pure statistician that has no idea about economics might find it difficult to tell whether or not a particular indicator is an outlier or not. But an economist knows that this is possible because that is the field that he's in, for example, and the same thing applies with the other subjects that that statistics is mixed with.
I was just wondering, Dr. Khaled, I'm sure you must have heard, excuse me, please. You must have heard Nigerians in general, the way we bandy figures. Sometimes the figures are extrapolations, sometimes the figures are outrageous, sometimes the figures are just plain incredible. Sometimes the numbers don't reduce. Let me just one or two examples. We just finished with the National Population Commission chairman and his area enumeration area demarcation manager. I'm sure you must have heard this. We're a country of, I don't know, 170. I'm sure by the end of this year, somebody will be saying 180 million. We've been told that out-of-school children population, about 10 million out of, so that's, we've had that number for the past, I don't know how many years. Yeah, you're smiling. So when do we begin to get reliable data to say, hey, listen, if out-of-school children were, say, 10 million 5 years ago, following XYZ intervention, this is where we are now. And realistically, our population couldn't be pushing 180. It probably could be pushing 250 or even 160. Why do we tend to inflate figures? And how does that worry you as Secretary General of the Federation?
Well, people what the numbers are. So they fund that and they disappear for 2-3 years. When they need the update, they come back again. So in between that period, there are gaps in the data series. So that's because the data is not being funded by the country. It's being funded by external people who have their own different agenda. So that's the kind of problem we have, where the data is not updated because the funding is not brought into it. But in terms of data where the funding has been made, the Nigerian data system is very, you don't hear anybody say CBN has not updated external reserve data for 2 years because funding is in that regard. As far as population is concerned, I don't want to say anything against our colleagues in Population Commission. I've said this publicly. I'm sure if they agree with me, I don't agree that our population figures are 100 and I don't know what you say it is now, 170 and 180, and there are two reasons. We are using a flat growth rate of 3%. That assumes that the birth and death rate stays constant over the next 10 years. I think that's unrealistic. Every year we use 3%, 3%, 3%. That suggests that all our family planning strategies are not working. It suggests that improvement in health and education is having no impact on birth and death rates and so on. You're supposed to use vital registration data to project or forecast, to estimate rather, your population. It's supposed to be based on deaths and birth rate in a particular year. But because we don't collect that effectively, we have to now use a flat 3% growth rate. So again, I don't really think that our population, I don't know where it is. I would suggest it's less because I always feel that most countries have the incentive, most states rather, have the incentive to increase their population rather than reduce it. So there's more likely, if there's going to be any manipulation, I'm not saying there is, it's more likely to lead to an increase in the population as opposed to the reduction.
So what do we have as our population figure?
Fortunately, I'm not the Population Commission, and population data is the only indicator that the National Bureau of Statistics does not have control of, because it's put in the Constitution as part of the responsibility of the Population Commission. So I do not know what the Nigerian population numbers are. I will have to rely on what the Population Commission has given us as the official statistics, because as Secretary General, I have to advocate that official statistics is what is used by Nigerians. So I'll defer to, in the absence of any other reliable figure, I would have to stick with what the Population Commission is saying.
So invariably, most of the different agencies will still have to get whatever it is that they've gone out to seek as numbers to go back to MBS. Is that what?
Mother and child. That's, you add it as 3 people that are poor. Now you have a different system called adult equivalent that treats the woman as 3/4 of a person, 3/4, and children as half. Now if you use that, that same means that in that house you have maybe 2 or 1 point something as poor. So if you want to reduce your poverty numbers, you use the adult equivalent to pull the numbers down to 1.5 or maybe 1 or 1.5. But whereas as opposed to 3 if you use per capita consumption. So you now have arguments of, oh, adult equivalent is suddenly better because that's the objective is to pull. So I mean, those are the kind of problems that you can have in the statistical system. That's why MBS was set up to define, this is the rules in terms of gathering data, analyzing data. This is what everybody should use so that people are not allowed to. And the reason why they put that in MBS is because a sector has an incentive to make the data look good for itself. I don't want to, this is a random example. You can imagine, why would the Ministry of Health, for example,
XYZ, yes.
Okay, want to announce health figures that are going bad? They will use whatever, they are likely, or they have the incentive rather, to choose whatever methodology that makes the health numbers look. But MBS, for example, does not particularly care which agency is looking good or not. So we have it's easier for us to say, look, this is what the numbers look like, and stick to it, because we don't have to explain to anybody why the numbers are looking better or worse.
Okay, I just wonder, in addition to what you just said, what is your interaction with states?
Well, like I said,
in terms of data gathering.
Like I said, we are the coordinator of the statistical system. So we realize that there are capacity gaps in many of the states. So what we are supposed to do as well is to build that capacity even at the state statistical offices. So most every time we are going to the field and we have to do some training, we always try to bring the states along. We tell the states, nominate your statistical officers to come to the training so they can build capacity that way, and we involve them in the field work so that for two reasons. One, so they can build capacity, and also for ownership, so that when the numbers come out and may not favor the particular state, we can say, well, your officers were part of this work, this was not made, that's one. Secondly, we also train, we train them, we also develop templates. There's a compendium of statistical terms that we produce for them, which is also part of capacity building. Like I said, we use them also in terms of field work. In terms of as part of the National Strategy for Development of Statistics, there was a system that was designed that the NBS as the national data.
Number of them would like to take at this time. Philip Awodu-Ture, excuse me, I'm sorry. I said, Philip Awodu-Ture, most institutions have statistics as a course, but their graduates work as tellers in banks or rather unemployed.
All right, for Solomon Dembo says, unlike other census figures, the population figure of 2006 is not available according to settlement. What is the role of NBS in this? And, okay.
Well, Crawford Swimworld, they said the statisticians we need in Nigeria are those that use softwares to analyze big data, not theoretical statisticians.
Okay, most institutions, this is coming from St. Philip, have statistics as a course, but their graduates work as tellers in banks or rather unemployed.
Well, I think that relates to what Dr. Tumala mentioned. The demand, if you are interested in statistics, you would employ statisticians. Once you are able to get people to understand how important statistics is, then you see everybody looking for statisticians. But because the system is such that, I can tell you in countries where they take their data seriously, they employ huge numbers of statisticians. But in the country, it depends on what your country values. I remember growing up and I was very good in football and telling my parents at that time I wanted to be a footballer. Then that was not going to happen. But if you go to a more developed country and their child is good in playing football, they are excited. So it depends on what your country values. Now, until our country starts valuing statistics and statisticians more, the demand for statistics, the employment opportunities and so on for statistics will increase. And that's probably what the problem is in that regard. We need to get more statisticians, statistics recognized better, deserving of its importance in society. When that happens, we get a lot more people going into statistics and people being employed as statisticians.
Yeah, I want to agree with the person who voiced about big data. Big data essentially is data available at very high frequency and in big volume. Agencies like the EFCC, for instance, are waiting for crimes to happen and start following. No, you need to approach this differently. You need to approach it in such a way that as they are occurring, because records of bank transactions are there. You know, EFCC can have access to transactions as
A couple of other tweets from our viewer Solomon Dembo writes, Nigerians find statistical figures from the NBS unreliable. What is the NBS doing to correct such impression? That's Solomon Dembo.
And also I think for Philip for real, most statisticians are not in the right place because of government policies. They expect NBS to be in all agencies, whether state or federal. You know, our position you already.
Let me take the first one on suggested unreliable figures. Again, I would say that I do not agree that NBS figures are unreliable. I believe that people, because of historical reasons, choose not to believe them because they are government figures. And I've defended that by saying, why do you believe the figures coming from World Bank that is NBS produced, but not the one the NBS produced from the same people? People only believe NBS figures that suits your narrative. So I remember in the last election, one party will say poverty figures are correct and the GDP rebasing is fake. Another party will say GDP rebasing is correct and the poverty figures are fake. And I keep saying both figures came from the same agency, NBS. What makes us reliable today and incompetent tomorrow? It depends on your... And people look at things in terms of what they call, I'm sure you're familiar with this phrase, it does not reflect reality on the ground. I hear it a lot. And I keep saying, you mean your reality? We're a country of, well, 100 and something million people, hopefully. We have different realities. People always assume that the reality they are facing is what people across the 774 local governments are facing. So someone that has goes to his own local supermarket, sees inflation is up by 100%, for example. Somebody else, his own inflation is 50%. Now, run into a lot of storm. I'm very used to that. It comes with the job.
You run into some storm again, about the unemployment data. You came out with your figures, and people were saying, what does this mean in this country where you have, let him go to the newsstands and see jobless people reading newspapers? What's your reaction? Let's call it today now on this conversation.
I think people need to read the methodology. The answers to all these questions lie in the methodology. We have a way of looking at certain things as we focused on the technical definition of unemployment. You are not unemployed if you are not looking for work. Now let me give you a rough example. We agree that about 60% of Nigerians live in the rural areas. They are not idle. They are usually farmers. Their wives have some small shops. So probably almost everybody there is doing something. Once you are doing something and earning some living, you are employed. So majority of those in the rural areas that are farmers, they're not reading newspapers in the rural areas. So you have over half of the population that you can say is already employed because they are farmers and if their wives are at home, in housewives, they are not unemployed. They don't have work, but they're not unemployed because once you say you are not looking for work, you can't be unemployed. So if you a wife voluntarily decides to be a housewife, she's not unemployed, she's just not working. Then you have students. Once you are in school working, you're not unemployed. Then you have to be within the economically active population of between 15 and 64. So everybody between 0 and 14 and 65 and above cannot be unemployed. But we have this way of multiplying things times 180 million and then getting some ridiculously high figure that makes us feel as bad as we really want to feel. And that is basically what it is.
All right. The Assistant General of the Federation, Dr. Yemi Kale, would like to thank you for being with us on the program this morning. And we hope you run into fewer storms going forward. We also would like to thank Dr. Muhammad Tumala, his president, Statisticians Association of Nigeria. Dr. Tumala, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
I do hope that you have a number of women in your association because statistics and maths, they are quite related, and that's a scary area. But that's for another day.
That is another option now, or estimation that you're giving. We'll say we are not better mathematicians.
That's the situation on the ground.
Okay, that's the situation on the ground. All right. That's it. Thank you very much, gentlemen, really. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break at this point, and it will be time to take on our companion segment on the program.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors. For a shining clean and fresh toilet.
Wow.
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. Dettol is the #1 selling antiseptic liquid, proven to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
Introducing the new Dettol 55-gram soap with the same germ protection and quality at a more affordable price. Buy the new Dettol 55-gram soap for 80 Naira only. Keep your family protected from germs.
Wonderful killing of the ball. Just stepped inside the defender and buried that.
Champions Enyimba were unable to begin their title defense of the league with a win, bowing 1-0 to Rivers United at the Liberation Stadium on Sunday. The biggest shock of the weekend was recorded as debutant Mountain of Fire FC displays host Nasarawa United 2-1. Ajia Emmanuel scored the only goal with an effort from distance as Lobby Stars stunned Shooting Stars of Ibadan 1-0 at the Lekon Salami Stadium. An injury-time strike by Seka Pasca in the first half ensured that FC Ifeanyi shocked Giwa FC 1-0 at the Rampam Stadium. And all 4 away wins were recorded in the opening day of the Nigeria Professional Football League. That's it from the world of sports. This morning the program continues in just a bit. Have a very great week ahead.
Yes, so wish you same Musba down Wahab there. Well, voters were said to have turned out en masse even in Niger for the election this last Saturday. Well, they turned out to actually choose their new representatives at the country's parliament and presidency. Here's Namdi Adupo with the details.
Thanks for staying with us. Voting has ended in Niger's presidential and parliamentary elections, with the country's president, Muhammadu Yusufu, hoping to secure a second 5-year term. A total of 7.5 million people were eligible to vote, with results due within 5 days. In Syria, at least 42 people have been killed in 2-car bomb blast in the city of Homs. Syrian state news agency SANA said on Sunday that the attack took place near the entrance to the Al-Amar neighborhood in Homs city. Reports say dozens more were wounded in the attacks. Lastly, in India, at least 10 people have been killed and 150 others injured in protest by India's agricultural Jat community in support of caste-based quota systems. Police say the violence in the North Indian state of Haryana has affected water supplies in the capital, New Delhi, as protesters cut off canal gates feeding its treatment plants. And that's it on the foreign thing. Good morning.
All right, here is Ngozi Chude with Arts and Entertainment.
Good morning and welcome Nigerians to another thrilling and exciting time on the showbiz segment. Kevin Olushola, an American multi-instrumentalist born of a Nigerian father and British mother, was one of the winners at the just concluded 20 throughout his grade school. Young Olushola at age 12 was selected as the principal saxophonist of the United States Collegiate Wind Band and toured Europe during the summer for 3 weeks. He has regenerated many songs, among which are John Legend's All of Me, Justin Bieber's Do You Know, among others.
Interesting there. Well, for the outlook on the weather prospect for the rest of the day, here's the meteorologist.
Welcome. We continue to witness plume after plume of dust raised as a result of tight surface pressure gradients over the Sahara. We expect, therefore, the already poor horizontal visibilities to be sustained and, in some cases, to become poorer with the entry of a fresh dust plume into the country. And so moderate dust haze conditions are expected over the north and central states. However, there are chances of 1 or 2 areas to have horizontal visibilities less than 1,000 meters, a threat to aviation activities. Dust haze conditions should also encroach to this inland of the south, while the southernmost part of the country should be partly cloudy with some degree of haziness. This should cause maximum temperatures to reduce slightly, especially over the extreme north and central states. And here's the temperature forecast.
Well, if we thought yesterday was hot, today promises to be even hotter. 39? That's some heat.
For the FCT, by the way.
Exactly, that's for the FCT.
It's cooler in the morning and in the evenings.
Okay. That's our program for today. We appreciate your company. Tomorrow definitely is another day. My name is Blessing Abu. I wish you a great day ahead.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, thanking you for starting your day with us. We're back tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the morning. Have a nice day as well.